Hey guys, this isn't Linus. So what's one of your favorite childhood memories? Maybe eating sugary cereal while watching Saturday morning cartoons, sucking Capri Sun out of a pouch, or getting weird love notes from that super awkward kid. You know who you are. Well, if you were like me, it's blowing dust out of my old game cartridges, which would magically make them work if they'd been misbehaving. And because all of our old consoles, the NES, Sega Genesis, Game Boy, etc. all use cartridges, this was a near universal rite of passage for young gamers back in the day. But fast forward to modern times, and game cartridges have largely disappeared. Nintendo is still using cartridge-like game carts for their 3DS and Switch consoles, but the PS4 and Xbox One, which are meant to stay in the living room, still use optical discs, and so did all of their predecessor consoles. It's actually been a long time. Actually, what was the N64 was the last time that there was a proper game console that was based in your home that still used cartridges. CDs, guys, they're the future. Whatever. So why have they disappeared, and why were they popular in the first place? Well, although we usually think of game cartridges as older tech, do you remember how quickly games used to load compared to modern titles on optical media? I mean, right now, you take a game, you put it in your Xbox, and not only do you have to install 50 gigs to your hard drive, but then you have to download another 20 gigabyte patch. Whereas with Super Mario on the NES, you just put it in, and you play. Please don't use that. Well, not only were the cartridges relatively durable, other than the aforementioned dust issues, but the way they interfaced with the console made them very fast. You see, when you inserted a cartridge into a console, the system effectively treated its content as part of the system's memory. Imagine how fast modern PC games would load if they were just sitting on a stick of RAM that you insert in your motherboard instead of a hard drive or SSD with slower loading times. Of course, it's not a perfect comparison. Game cartridges contained mostly read-only memory, or ROM, that stored the code for the game itself. Whenever you saved your progress, the save file will be stored on either a small amount of volatile memory that needed a coin battery to maintain the data, or a special memory chip called an EEPROM that doesn't need a constant supply of power, but can only hold a very small amount of information. So if cartridges were faster and could hold save data, unlike optical discs, then why did they almost disappear? Unsurprisingly, as with many great things in life, a huge part of the equation is the cost. Game cartridges and the ROM they contain is a lot more expensive to manufacture than optical discs, which can be produced for only a couple bucks, including their packaging and documentation. Although, to be fair, they don't really include much documentation these days. You gotta be eco, aka cheap, and not give me a cool manual to remember how to beat the boss or something. I don't know what. To be fair, I don't really ever think I found any use at all in manuals. Even though data disks are much more susceptible to things like breakage and scratches, it was a worthwhile trade-off for the console manufacturers, especially considering that it's a lot easier to create a high-capacity optical disc than create a high-capacity cartridge when games became more complex. The optical disc also allowed the likes of Sony and Microsoft to push more games to market prior to digital distribution. Because those optical discs were so much cheaper to produce, if you released a game that turned out to be a giant dud in terms of sales, it didn't automatically mean that you were going to be a completely bankrupt company. Of course, physical media isn't exclusively in the form of optical discs these days. Anyone who owned a Sony Discman in the 90s will know just how much of a pain taking an optical disc on the road can be. So for portability reasons, the aforementioned Nintendo 3DS and Switch use game cards, something that Nintendo has been able to get away with thanks to the falling costs of solid-state storage and their high margins on the first-party titles. And I guess third-party titles too, if you think about it. I wonder how much Nintendo makes for every Switch game they sell. I bet it's a lot.
At least 7.
What? $7?
At least.
7%?
At least.
7 cents?
At least.
Okay. But it should be noted that modern game carts are quite different from the game cartridges of yesteryear. They don't become part of the addressable memory for the console, as instead they're much more akin to something like a modern SD card. That means load times can still be slightly long, but there is good news. Nothing's stopping you from blowing the dust off of those Nintendo cartridges and reliving the days before your failed relationships and crippling student loan debt. But if you want to get that self-confidence back after you've been dumped for the 4th time, then you might want to check out the sponsor of today's video.
Do you want to, treat your, brain? Well then check out Brilliant, a problem-solving website that teaches you to think like a computer scientist. Instead of passively listening to lectures, Brilliant allows you to master concepts by solving fun and challenging problems, and it provides the framework and tools that you need to tackle the challenges. Brilliant's thought-provoking content is based around breaking up complexities into bite-sized, understandable chunks that will lead you from curiosity to mastery. And you'll be in the company of over 5.5 500,000 members who share your curiosity and love for math and science. So what are you waiting for? You can support TechWiki and learn more about Brilliant by clicking the link in the video description or going to brilliant.org/techwiki and signing up for free. The first 200 people to go to the link will get 20% off an annual premium subscription, so be sure to check it out.
So thank you for watching this very non-Linus edition of TechWiki. If you enjoyed, then you know you can hit the like button. If you didn't enjoy, you should hit the like button anyway, because that's the way that works. And of course, you should check out some of these other videos, like this one and this one. And you can also go subscribe to our new channel. This is over on YouTube. Or you could just sit here and stare at me as I awkwardly wait for you to click on one of these videos. It's your choice, but that one's pretty good.